That's recording now?
Yes.
I just want to make sure the groundwork. That should solve a lot of the problems.
Good morning. Good morning. We'd like to go ahead and get started here if we can. I'd like to welcome you to the second Interconnect conference. Actually, for a handful of people around the room, this is the third one. Interconnect grew out of the Higher Education Faculty Association in the state, deciding that nobody really knew exactly what everybody else in the state was doing with multimedia. And so 3 years ago, we had a fall meeting that brought together about 60 people one very cold Saturday, and we saw what about 10 different schools in the state were doing with multimedia, and that was kind of the grassroots movement of this. So it's very much a faculty-driven interest that has created this conference even coming into being. I would like to add, or start off the morning, I guess, with an idea that has been circulating for me for the last few months due to one of the speakers that we'll have today. So throughout the conference, I'd like for everybody to consider this question. What would happen if we treated learning as though it were the most precious natural resource that we have? How would it change our world? How would it change our lives? How would it change our future? How would it change what we do on a daily basis as educators and trainers? And that's the premise of Diacom Technologies, and our noontime speaker today will be coming from that philosophical basis. So I think throughout the conference, as we focus on the learning side of what we're looking at, it's a good starting point. This morning, we're going to have a keynote speaker here, and then at noon we'll have another keynote here where we'll have lunch also. And tomorrow, the same thing, but the rest of the conference takes place in the Noble Center, which is a good walk from here across campus. And we have signs up pointing that direction. So generally, you can just kind of follow the crowd. We have 4 different rooms over there. And in your folders, you have, most of you have a yellow sheet. Some of you may have white sheets like this. But this will give you an idea of the rooms and the times that different sessions are taking place. The agenda and the abstracts for the conference are in the brochure, and this will also list the names of different presenters. So armed with both of these, you can find out what's going on where. We also have maps provided, and on the map of the Noble Center, the rooms that presentations will be taking place in are circled. Basically, they're the same 4 rooms throughout the conference, so once you find all 4 of them, you'll know where you're at. We do have 2 presentations that will be taking place in our writing studios, which are in a different building on campus. So with those, if you plan to attend them, you can meet in the lobby in the Noble Center, and those presenters will take you to the writing studio. So we didn't add a 3rd map and so forth there. And the inner lobby and Noble Center will become clear once you get into the building. It is exactly that, a large, spacious area in the middle of the building. I'd like to also introduce our conference coordinators, and particularly for those of you that are presenters or those of you that brought equipment and would like to present at our interactive reception this afternoon. Particularly, you might want to talk to the gentleman here at the back, Jerry Zink, because he will address your technical and equipment needs. My co-coordinator of the conference back here is Anita Gordy. And I am Kent Roberson. And let's see, Bill's behind the camera. Also out in the lobby we have Rosina and Sandra, who will be manning the information desk and phones and so forth, any kind of needs that you have that way. We all have ribbons added to our name tags in case you didn't catch any of those people. Okay, I'd also like to thank the social studies section from General Ed, who have volunteered to moderate in the rooms, and they will be taking up evaluation forms at the end, helping presenters with any things that they need to do, and hopefully keeping us all on time as we go from session to session. Now let's get on with the morning, and I'd like to introduce to you our provost, and he will introduce to you our keynote speaker this morning. This is Dr. Bob Klavish.
Thanks, Ken. Good morning to you. Just a few comments that I want to make this morning, and I'm going to reference around the book entitled The Imposters in the Temple, and it was by Mark Anderson in 1992 was when the book was copyrighted. And if you haven't had the opportunity, in fact, I think all of us that are in higher education, probably that book, Imposters in the Temple, ought to be required reading for us. And it talks about the wide reality that exists between higher education and the world of work and employers. And less than many other institutions, I think it is not as true by far for this institution as it is other institutions of higher education. But the connection that we need to make for our students between what we provide them in the educational environment and what they're going to do after they graduate from our institutions is becoming more and more important all the time. It needs to become more and more relevant. And just a few things it talks about in this particular book. Probably, maybe some of you have read, maybe many of you have read it. Just remind us that the reason the book was written by these individuals was that we have lost touch with employers, and we have lost touch in higher education, business and industry, and that we need to reevaluate what it is that we're doing and make that connection again. Because if we don't make that connection with business and industry, then they aren't going to need us in higher education very much longer. There are opportunities, there is technology available, and employers in business and industry, they're investing heavily in second chance education, in remedial education, because somewhere along the line, in elementary education or secondary education or higher education, we have not met their needs. We are not achieving their expectations. And just a couple weeks ago, I was visiting with a physics professor, asking how many hours he taught. And he said, well, I don't teach. One is I research, because that's important to contribute to the body of knowledge. And then I lecture 1 3-credit course. And if students learn, that's okay. But I don't teach, I lecture. And that information gets out there. And if students learn from that, that's okay. Well, that's why we have disconnection between employers. That's why we have disconnection between business and industry and institutions of higher education. I think all of us in higher education, we need to rededicate ourselves, recommit ourselves to making that connection between employers, between business and industry in our institutions of higher education. I don't think there's a better opportunity, and there's a window of opportunity that's open now for us to do that. And I don't think it's probably ever been better than it is right now, because industry, employers are more ready than perhaps they've ever been before to make that connection. We need to be more ready, but if we don't make that connection, that window of opportunity is going to be closed. So I want to encourage all of us to think about how we can utilize technology and the implications that technology has. And institutions, the brick and mortar is not what is the most critical thing to institutions. It's that interaction that we have between our students as we prepare them to take their place in the world of work. Because whether they gain an associate degree, whether they gain a baccalaureate, a master's degree, or a doctorate degree, at some point, all of those individuals are going to go to work. They're going to generate wealth if they perform together. And the way that they generate that wealth now, by and large, is because we have a knowledge-based and information-based economy. And that's what this conference is about. Interconnection is about how we do those types of things. We need to learn how to do it more efficiently, and we need to learn how to do it more effectively. So this morning, we have with us to kick off the session, Dr. Dennis Shaeffer, and he's with Texaco Inc. And he will bring the employer perspective to this particular conference as we kick it off, and then as we go through the other general sessions, and as we go through the breakout sessions, hopefully we can keep that in mind, that it takes a balance between institutions of higher education and employers, but we need to pay attention to that, and we need to make sure we're fostering that right type of balance. So this morning, I just want to run over Dr. Shaeffer's background a little bit for you, because he does bring a great deal of credibility and experience to the session that he's going to present this morning. But he has over 20 years of corporate experience in instructional design and evaluation, management training, organizational development, and performance technology at Texaco, Rockwell International Career Circles, and GeoSource. And Dennis facilitates executives, managers, and improvement practitioners on improving business performance and enhancing productivity, quality in the work environment. He is presently developing the Internet Improvement Partnership for a consortium of businesses in the United States and Europe. Dr. Shaeffer received his doctorate of higher education from Pennsylvania State University in instructional technology and evaluation. And he's held faculty appointments at the University of Texas, Health Sciences Center, University of Delaware, Houston Baptist University, Houston Community College, and the University of Houston. He has designed and taught courses in organizational development, management, training, performance evaluation, total quality management, and instructional design. He has authored, presented, published, and produced over 70 books, articles, training manuals, papers, symposiums, radio programs, television programs, and professional presentations. He's active with various civic and social and professional organizations. Dennis was recently recognized as the Quality Champion by the Association for Quality and Participation. So this morning it gives me pleasure to introduce to you for the first kickoff session Dr. Dennis Shaeffer.
Good morning. I want to thank you for inviting me to a city I can't pronounce. I was joking with the faculty yesterday about this. When I got off the airplane at Tulsa, I went up to the Hertz Rent-A-Counter, and because I'm one of the elite few called frequent flyers, I spent a lot of money. They treat me with great deference. They have at that counter there, a place for mere mortals, and then the other side is for those part of the Gold Club. When I got up there, I went through the usual routine, and I finally ended up with the important question, do you know where you're going? And I said, well, would like to have some directions. And she said, well, where are you going? And I said, I can't pronounce the name. She said, well, so you're going to Okmulgee, whatever. But she pronounced it correctly, and I was very embarrassed. And I said, well, you know, how do you pronounce this? And she said, well, the OK is pronounced oak, is an oak tree. And I thought to myself, in Texas, we're known for sort of dropping our vowels at times, but you all have lost the whole letter here. And as I go along, everybody keeps correcting how to pronounce this name of the city, and I discovered some of you also dropped the G. So I'm very confused, so all I'll say is I'm very happy to be in Oklahoma today, and I hope you enjoy my presentation. I'm from Houston, I can pronounce that. Let me talk to you about something that's near and dear to my heart. It's called the Internet Improvement Partnership. This is a vision. It exists as a piece of cyberspace out there. It's a prototype. And I'm basically out on the road selling this, trying to drum up business from education, from businesses, from whoever has more than $1 to lend to help fund this activity. We have already got a few companies, and I'll describe that later on in my presentation. We're stepping up to the plate. But everybody is seeing the importance of doing two things: partnering, and there are a lot of articles around about consortiums, and I encourage you to go look at, particularly in training magazines. There's some excellent articles in the last year. There's 2 or 3 books that have come out on consortiums and partnering in business and industry, and some excellent examples already of partnerships between business and education. The other thing that is happening, which is very exciting, is a thing called the Internet. And later on in the presentation, we'll talk about the World Wide Web. I started out at Penn State doing educational television. I did photography, graphics. I have supervised an instructional resources center. I have supervised production people. I've done practically everything you can do in the instructional media area, including some computerized training. I was one of the first tutor programmers on the Plato project, which is a piece of cyber history that was all kind of interesting. Revealing the faculty that we were so excited when we could make stupid little birds fly up and down, and it would take us a couple days just to program that. And now we look at incredible technological breakthroughs. And during my career, I have been in and out of this area of instructional design and development. And I think at any one point, it is now where the technology is ready to deliver, where we have the capability of truly interconnecting, truly interactive video, audio, etc., that can literally reach worldwide. And I've been doing this for well over 27 years, but I'm genuinely now excited because I think we have the capabilities of bringing this together. So that's what I'm going to talk to you about in terms of the Internet Improvement Partnership. Excuse me, I need to get this up oriented. The topics I'm going to discuss. Topics I'm going to discuss is how the improvement partnership actually works. And I may say a few things that you might find controversial, but so be it. You're not paying me anything on my room and board, and I'm out of here. And I'm not a prophet in my own land, so you can't stone me. So I will speak as I see it, and I will try to be as honest with you as possible. I think one of the most important aspects of the development of these partnerships will be the development of trust between business and education, and I'll discuss that later on. I also will talk about how we can meet needs for convenient access to improvement training. When I say improvement training, it's sort of the whole range of things called total quality management, productivity enhancement, improvement training, continuous improvement. We're looking at this as all-inclusive, all interconnected, one focus, and I'll describe that later. We also discuss how information is available upon request, and also how effectively we can focus both individual and work group needs and interconnection. Hopefully by the time I'm done here, I will have answered 3 questions. Why use the internet to improve supplier performance? When I say supplier performance, you can scratch that out and put student performance. You can put any name, any noun in there where there is a relationship of learning and there is a customer-supplier relationship. Why can I be here today? Well, I told my management that what we have with colleges and universities is a customer-supplier relationship. You are suppliers in one respect of raw materials business industry. You supply us with the people that we need to grow our industries. And we have, I think right now, a shaky relationship. And I'll talk about that in a little bit, why I think, and others in the business industry think we have this problem and what we can do about it. I'm not here to bash you or make you feel bad. I want to present, I think, a proactive, positive approach where we definitely can work together. A number that impressed me and impressed many other people in the business industry is 17% of Motorola's budget for training and education goes for remedial education. And when we say remedial, English, reading, writing, etc. Basic fundamental skills that people are coming to us are not there. It costs us, the business industry, incredible amounts of money to do that. That's why, for business purposes, and I think it's good business, we need to reestablish our relationship with education. You need to provide us with skilled workers, and we'll describe in my presentation what are some of those skills. Also, we'll talk about how Internet is going to, what you can do to interconnect and improve the supplier performance. I would say right now there's incredible opportunities being presented to education through business and also through legislation and government that we can really grow these relationships. And more practically, speaking from Texas perspective, there are monies available to do so that are specifically targeted for development of partnerships. Between now and November, I'm going to do about a half a dozen of these presentations. I'm going to be at 4 state universities in Texas, and they're all panicking because we have now rewritten our entire education code, 1,500 pages of legislation, redone basically in 2 months. That's a phenomenon for Texas. But what happened was it preceded that activity by almost 3 years of careful preparation, the development of white papers in joint councils between business, education, and government. So by the time it got to the legislature, it was already a done deal. Why was that important? Well, because in Texas, we need to compete like you need to compete, not only locally, but worldwide. And we can't do that unless we have the skilled work base that we need. So anyway, that's sort of the motivation. Presentation outline is very simple. I'm going to talk about this as a vision. It exists there, but it's only a little piece of cyberspace. There's a lot of things to do. I'm going to tell you about a lot of things that we want to do. And for us, that's a vision right now. It's out there. There are certain parts that are real. I'll tell you where the reality is. I will also talk in terms of the interconnected vision of what, who, when, where, which, and why. So I give you quite a bit of detail. I think these details are very important, that you get an understanding of what we're thinking about. Business industry, where we're coming from, what our needs are, etc. And I want to communicate that to you. We also talk about how this vision is becoming a reality, and then finally, what are the next interconnected steps for growing this vision. Okay, so there's a lot of interconnection stuff here. What I feel my presentation is simply an example of interconnection power. And the partnership represents an example of how we can work together, and hopefully a possible result of this is your creative minds will start generating interconnected ideas. How we can serve each other, how we can grow with each other, and hopefully how partnerships can grow. Now, I'm going to talk very quickly this morning, and I talk obviously from the slides. This presentation is going to change between now and November. What my goal is to go out, present this information, get feedback from people. This has been reviewed by quite a few people in business industry. When Anita approached me to do this, I kind of say, oh, well, I got this package deal here, I'm all ready to roll. And as this grew, and as people responded, and particularly as the Consortium for Supplier Training Partnership became more and more interesting, this thing has evolved. I probably put more work, more rewrite into this presentation than I did into my doctoral thesis. So, and that's said a lot sometimes. But what I'm getting at is this is growing. What you're going to hear today is going to be different than what I'm going to tell people next month and the following month. My promise to you is, at this address, you can plug in November and something that will resemble this presentation will be there. And the reason I'm deferring you to November is that's our target when we really are going to, we already have collected about $30,000. Our target is for purchase about $100,000 and then sustaining funds about $250,000. But by that time, we are going to have this presentation down. When I say we, I'll say that there's quite a few other people involved. So sit back and listen to what I have. My themes are one of interconnection, one of partnership, and one of where we're going and what our vision is about how we get there. All right, why do it? Well, I'll tell you, we're from business industry and altruism has nothing to do with it. It is good business for us to do it. And business, we told us that it's good business for us to do it. But what I think is important is that at this point, what we're talking about here in terms of these relationships, and particularly this internet, is it was sold not on the merits that it's good or moral or ethical or anything like that to do this with education. We sold it to our management based on the fact that this is good business to do it, and we will get benefit from that. This is a quote from a gentleman from Motorola University. He's actually the Vice President for Supplier Relationships, and he was speaking to his suppliers. These are managers that go out there and make supplier relations happen. They're the ones that spend almost $5 billion of Motorola's money with suppliers. And he said to them, yes, Motorola has a moral responsibility to grow small suppliers, but it also is good business. And what he remembered, because he was long with the corporation, is when they were small and struggling, and he used the term, when they were an acorn, that Ford ordered them, nurtured them, and they have now grown into a mighty oak, and that they feel they have the responsibility to do the same. But he also said it is just practically good business, because as they look into their supplier chain, that's where they see their quality has to begin. Texaco has over 10,000 domestic suppliers in the United States, which we really work with about 150. I work with, train them, interfaces with that. So there's thousands of suppliers out there that we do not deal with directly, training their quality processes. I mean, there are people who learn about quality processes. We need to do this. Same with Motorola and all the companies I'm going to talk about. There is a definite commitment on the part of many large corporations to grow the small entrepreneurial companies in the United States. An interesting number is in Texas during the downturn, the old bust, we had just under 50,000 small businesses. Now we have in excess of 60,000 small businesses. So even in the midst of all that turmoil, we have grown. If you look throughout the nation, yes, there's a higher percentage of failures, but the bottom line is small business does supply the raw materials that we need at the various tiers. So we need, as corporations, to address that. All right, what's the performance improvement opportunity I want to talk to you about? What is the vision? Well, I want to phrase it in good problem-solving terminology. What is the problem? What is the cause? What's the solution? Because I think you have to see what our thought process is, and then you can see why we selected internet. Our basic problem is there's thousands of suppliers being dropped from the vendor list for not meeting higher quality requirements. We are pushing those requirements higher and higher and not equalizing it across industries or anything like that. We're just saying we have more and better things to do, but what we need to understand in our relationship with you as a supplier is that you need to start acquiring these quality abilities, these continuous improvement abilities. A real concern we have is the third tier of the supplier training chain are usually not even impacted by the programs we sponsor. When we talk about tier, the first tier are preferred suppliers. They're the ones that we work with. In Motorola's case, they work with about 400 suppliers in that first tier, and those suppliers have suppliers. That becomes the second tier. Size doesn't necessarily break you out into a tier, it's more the relationship. But theoretically, or actually more practically, when you get to the third tier, the supplier relationship, you're really down to the small operations, almost the sole proprietorship, the minority, women-owned, disabled, veteran disabled companies. And when you start looking at the total amount of money at Texaco, we have spent at that third tier in a 5-year period close to $500 million. And that is, for our consideration, not adequate if we really are going to grow these companies. But the issue is simply one of training, you see, and at least what we're looking at. There are many suppliers, particularly small, etc., that don't even use that which they know. And that's a great concern to us. And bottom line, this is all impacted adversely in terms of how they're rated. And particularly as we rate from first to second tier, because there is where the real chain relationship is, because the numbers expand so rapidly. But the bottom line is, if our first tier gets bad evaluations, it usually has a direct relationship to the rest of the tier. Where's our data coming from? Well, it's coming from performance assessments, surveys. When you go into the literature, you'll find quite a few surveys of suppliers, what they do or do not know. There's industrial and government studies. There's performance research. When I say performance research, I'm talking about a whole array of research going well into the 1920s and 30s. Some of it is still very valid information to very contemporary research regarding the effectiveness of total quality management. And more importantly, really shared corporate, professional, and personal experiences, observations, and opinions as we meet in our various councils and consortiums throughout the year. Something that I want to put into your mind is, with this best practice performance research, we who do this type of work believe that if you do what we tell you to do in terms of quality improvement, productivity enhancement, training, the systems, that you are, as a supplier, more effective. You do have higher efficiency, your performance is better, competitive advantage, and profits. If we didn't believe that and it didn't translate into bottom line results, we would have a great deal of difficulty sustaining it within our own company. When you look at where America's going as major corporations, what we're going to look at in terms of some of the attributes of why we selected Internet and why we're developing this improved partnership, you'll see that this is the bottom line for us. If we aren't this and the suppliers aren't this, then we all are going to fail. And this is an obvious result we're all looking for. We're looking for higher productivity, higher morale, enhanced customer satisfaction, etc., and community admiration. We're all in the same boat together in terms of our measurable outcomes. And I would challenge you as educators to start thinking in terms of these outcomes. If you can present to us students who are capable of helping us in improving profits and enhancing customer satisfaction, and you'll see some other skills we'll talk about here, you've got yourself winners, because we do not have to train them. And we would love to see students coming in the door who have a different profile. You can use, there's a term that's used out there, high performance teams. Well, we want high performance employees. They have to be able to fit into a team structure. They have to be able to solve problems. They have to be creative, innovative, and you'll see our attributes in a little bit here. Now, the Consortium for Suppliers Training saw this as a need, and it was recognized. About 2 years prior to 1993, Motorola, Boeing, Digital, a couple other companies got together, a lot of folks in the semiconductor industry, and said we got to do something here. Costs are going up, we need to improve our supplier base. And in 1993, they formed a consortium for supplier training. The European version was formed in 1994. And these two consortiums had a vision to improve supplier performance. And their goal was to provide quality training for suppliers at easily accessible location and at significantly reduced prices. When we look around internally to our own organization, we can afford some of this training, but it's becoming even more expensive for us. And we have 10,000 employee suppliers out there. This goal becomes very important. We can get the costs down. Part of our thinking, you'll say why we came to education, is, hey, we give you tax dollars, we give you a lot of support in certain areas, and there are a lot of good reasons why you can be delivering cost-effective training for us. And part of the consortium concept is for these corporations to give the training to education. And we do this in various ways. The one major way is a corporation sponsors a college. These corporations make some of their best training available to the colleges, and the colleges then deliver the training for us. This is all brand new, folks. You say, boy, it sounds reasonable to me. Why didn't you do it before? Well, why we didn't do it before is you look at that, and there's 18 different cultures there. You cannot imagine the discussions we go through. Heaven help us anytime we have to do something legally, because they go through the legal department. Man, don't even talk about using logos together and something like that. It is a very delicate relationship. It's based on cultural needs in one respect, but underlying it all are business needs. So this consortium is growing. It also has some Fortune 100 companies. We are building these partnerships with colleges and universities, and we are transferring our best practices. Last year, we had 1,353 participants, 235 suppliers attending our training. Well, that's all right, but we're doing a lot of yes buddy. We're sometimes impatient, and we've been recognized for our leadership in supplier training. We've been quoted in books and all this stuff, but as far as we're concerned, we get too slow a response from other companies to join our efforts. We see a great diversity of supplier training, but we see many underserved groups, and particularly the minority, women-owned, disabled. We absolutely know that that is true, and we need to do something about that. Also, we see a steady, but we feel that it's too slow a growth. This is too urgent a problem not to address faster. We see the use of best practices out there with the people we have trained, but that's just too little. But we really need more suppliers trained, and we actually need more of these techniques transferred. We feel that we do have affordable training, but the costs are rising. And when we do these transfers, we have to recognize that the college and university is going to train. They have to make some money to pay their staff. But again, costs are going up, and we feel that we need to address that cost issue very quickly. And particularly for a lot of companies like Texaco, where we're downsizing and outsourcing our training, we got to really make sure we have a cost factor that we can deal with. We feel we have excellent training, 95% customer satisfaction based on the Motorola evaluation system, which is quite high. Motorola has as a standard internally for Motorola University is 95%. So we are equal to Motorola's standard for our customer satisfaction. And we feel we're doing a fine job for a startup effort, but we need to do better. Everyone says, we got to move it, we got to get going. We've spent now enough time developing sort of a relationship with colleges. Now we got to get numbers up there. We're very concerned about this because we feel that we got a gap growing here regarding best practices. And there are things that are called strategic partnership requirements between suppliers and customers. And I'll regale you with those later on when we go through a checklist approach here of why we did something a certain way. But one of the things that's happening that's really shaking suppliers, and they're not sure they trust us yet, and we're not really sure we can trust them, but we are going through the development of partnerships. But we are talking about strategic partnerships, and we're not necessarily talking about strategic partnerships with our true strategic relationships, in other words, our key suppliers. But when you talk about this aspect of it, the strategic aspect of it, what you get into is more than pricing. You get into shared vision, mutual improvements for suppliers to remain competitive. There is a deep concern that the technology transfer and use is not going fast enough. But the key part here is the sharing of vision, sharing of mission, of goals, and stuff like that. That is a very difficult issue for procurement departments to work with, because they've been driven for centuries literally by pricing, and now we're saying it's a different world. The message to you as educators is it is a new workplace out there, it is a different world, and there are different requirements. And many of the paradigms that you have been trained in, have lived in, are changing. We are truly becoming international, and our focus, globalization is not a fad, it's a reality. Texaco right now has 60% of its profits flowing in from overseas operations. You know, anyone who is Vietnamese and fluent in English and Vietnamese and wants to go live in Saigon and help develop market potential oil services over there, their jobs right now. If you have people with technical skills and they're not afraid of eating goat's brains, and which is a delicacy of Indonesia, so if you're an honored guest, they bring out the goat brain and they ask how you love it. Well, growing up in Pennsylvania, a German family where you ate everything but the horns, bring on goat's brain, I can handle it, but you know, there's some cultural issues that people have. Even Motorola is having a need to develop these cultural transitions. And I would say, you know, I know you're in Oklahoma and you wear cowboy boots, well, you wear them in Texas and other places else, but you know, the real world out there is an international world. And if you want to help your students, get them to start thinking about the international scene. Just for a very practical reason, expats, we call them, expatriated Americans who work overseas make incredible amounts of money. Some of the happiest families we have in Texaco work in Rumbai, which is a jungle camp in Indonesia, and it's a miniature America. They have houses, they have maids, they have swimming pools, golf clubs, to knock around the golf course and all this. And it is a unique world for them. And what we find is the people that really are happy there are young married, young children who want to have an opportunity to raise their children in a unique environment. I mean, kids get on a plane, they fly to Singapore, they fly to Bali, you know, it's an international experience. So anyway, there's a wide world out there, but we got to get this training across. And one of the things we run into, and we keep asking, so, you know, if our dog food is so good, why doesn't the dog eat more dog food? We have a consortium. Dog food is only best practices are used, no additives, no substitute. But it is a real issue, and it's sort of an issue that reflects in your education processes and curriculum. So, we need to find a better way, and we again looked at our basic customer and supplier relationships from understanding. We want to baseline ourselves. There's a process called benchmarking that's used quite extensively in business, and I think education needs to look into that. But that's how you set standards outside your own industry. We looked at the basic requirements of strategic partnerships, and this is what drives us if we're going to have something going with our suppliers, is that there has to be a sharing of essential improving values. I spent time with the faculty yesterday. I'm sure they're tired of hearing me harp on values, values, and values. But the whole issue is for a customer-supplier relationship, it has to be built on trust, and that trust can only come out of sharing common values. You will see ethics being taught more and more in business school than ever before. There is a group in the United States, headhunters it's called. They go out and recruit for corporations, and every year they publish a list of what they consider the important skills that people should have, and some of the high skills. Now these are executives they're recruiting, is teamwork skills, creativity skills, problem-solving skills, and the ability to work in terms of sharing of information. Now, this is a whole different world, and the reality is it's running into incredible resistance. We're going against some very fundamental values of America, competition, rewarding the individual, and that is sort of in conflict a lot of times with what would be considered the realities of business, but there are changes that are occurring. Motorola University, to encourage some focus on the part of the executives, withholds part of their bonus structure, and a percentage of that, a fairly large percentage, between 20 and 30%, is related to their quality metrics. If they don't have quality, they're not going to get their bonus. So there are some changes. There are lawsuits against major corporations by Meek and Mild Sisters of Mercy, by the Lutheran Aid Association, and groups like that, religious groups, for bringing their social agendas, not their religious, but their social agendas, to the corporate boardroom, saying that to these board members, they need to be more responsive to the needs of society, and they're doing it with great clout. Sisters of Mercy, Roe, and they have sued Texaco, that's why we're familiar with this. They control quite a few million shares, and they control enough shares that the president of Texaco cleared his calendar to meet with Sisters of Mercy to describe this social issue that they feel Texaco is working. So anyway, the strategic partnership has some very interesting interconnects, and particularly the use of common practices. One of the items that's very important to us is alignment. And this goes back to principles and values and vision and mission. And the alignment is, for business purposes, around total customer satisfaction. Motorola's evaluation system of training is very unique. They say that students are your customers, and you are a supplier of learning to those customers, and your customer satisfaction rate should be 100%. Students aren't here to serve your needs, you're there to serve their needs. And for Motorola University, all trainers have to do evaluations or they don't get paid. And they also agree that they will maintain their evaluations at 95%. They don't get fired if they drop, they go through remedial education, so that well. With Motorola's clout, they get excellent trainers, but still the bottom line is they still monitor these evaluations, a customer satisfaction evaluation. Another strategic partnership is the daily use of an improvement system in common language. I think that is one of the challenges education has to deal with if they want to do continuous improvement quality. You got to come to grips that you're going to use this daily. We in education, in business are struggling with it on it, but those companies that do this, Motorola, Xerox, in particular, the daily use of these practices, they are successful. So we really got to be able to get this out there, and then sharing is another issue. What we see in terms of the strategic partnership is a continuum of interconnection, interdependency, focused by continuous improvement. We're doing it. You got to do it. We're going to have a partnership that's built around continuous improvement. It's no choice. You have to decide as an entire group that you're going to do this. If you don't do that and only a department does it, then you're going to have what Tom Peters calls these islands of excellence. That individual department may shine, it may have good relationships with business industry, but it is not in the best interest of the whole organization. It's not in the best interest of the state, it's not in the best interest of your students. So one of the issues I think you all have to come to grips with, this is going to be my message as I go to the different state universities in Texas, because the legislation code requires that they form partnerships. High schools are panicking because they can be, well, let me back up. What can happen is business, if they wanted to, can get together with one program faculty, and 51% of faculty and 20%, and this is, don't quote me on this one, there's some bizarre thing here, but 20% of the tax-paying parents registered in the community, or some wording like that, agree with the faculty, we can charter our own academic program. And once we do that, the principal cannot do anything about that program. They don't have control over that program. Oh, the principal is saying, oh my God. The Texas Educational Agency cannot control that program. All they can do is monitor for compliance for federal and state laws, but they have essentially given us the right for curricular reviews, faculty reviews, all sorts of interesting things. A whole school district can become a charter school district. Now that probably won't be a reality for 4 or 5 years. But I'll tell you what is a reality, and we're already working this, the reality of individual companies. Bechtel is an example. My daughter goes to Beller High School. We have the second highest number of merit scholarship winners in the state of Texas, and they are targeting a little segment of math, science area for preparation of engineers. Man, can you imagine what Bechtel can throw to a program like that? And another little thing is that that money can be then directed to that support for that program. So there's all sorts of interesting things, all sorts of interesting interconnections. All right, let's get back in focus though. There's that old quality maxim, you're only as good as your suppliers. And I think the semiconductor industry is particularly vulnerable to that. Their tolerances for deficiencies, for defects, for contaminants is 3.4 parts per million. They have their famous Six Sigma program. They are now moving, I was up visiting Motorola about 2 weeks ago, to 3.4 parts per billion. Why are they doing this? Competitive advantage. Can you imagine the competitive advantage they're going to have over the semiconductor competitors if their quality can be that high? So they have to depend on their suppliers. What's the cause of this? Well, we started out by saying, all right, we got a problem here. What's the possible cause? We looked at our data. And for those of you familiar with Mager, we didn't want to fall into the trap of lack of. We didn't want to assume that there was a lack of motivation, training, rewards, credibility. We're trying to keep ourselves open. So our data source was the same as before, but now we've been in operation about 2 years. We now have some course evaluations, some supplier training center feedback, and some supplier feedback. Last summer, I took a faculty member from Houston Community College Business Program. She came over and I worked with her in sort of a mentoring relationship. She worked with 2 small suppliers, and the outcome of that effort this summer is part of this internet program. And that was a direct attempt for supplier feedback. Here we are, and one person I talked to was a sole proprietor, woman-owned, a small business, Arts Sense, Sports Sense, and we were using her feedback, and that feedback is actually going to impact the whole program to Motorola, Kodak, and stuff. So we're trying to get serious about developing this feedback. All right, let me give you a quick theory here. This is the theory of the supplier relationship model. You know, customer got needs, suppliers got solutions, we throw requirements, they give us conditions, they do the work, and we throw them money. And that sounds like a good relationship then, right? Clean and neat. And then we ask suppliers, how do you see this? And they have a little different picture of all things. They saw a barrier of incredible proportions, and I'll regale you with some of the barrier issues. But what they feel is it's almost a battleground out there. And we're trying to be realistic. We know who we got out there. We have people who have been buyers for our corporations for 30 years, and they know that these suppliers are the scum of the earth. They'll steal from us, give them 1 minute and all this, and we should dump them in if we can't get a 1 cent differential on cash flow for a whole week. And you're asking me to do training. They still feel, and we recognize this is inherent in the system right now, but we need to listen to what they're telling us. That it's too inspection-oriented, it's not user-friendly, they don't know what to do next, it doesn't cause quick beneficial results for them because they're literally living day by day on the cash flow, and whatever sees some impact of that. It's too externally focused, on meeting training check-it-off requirements, and that has to do, unfortunately, it's kind of federal programs. You gotta get these people in to check off that list and show that you've done some things. You have a lot of customer-supplier relationships based on the low price paradigm. That is our major problem out there, and we're going to have to deal with it. And if you read in the literature about these strategic partnerships, one of the issues is that you don't necessarily go with the lowest price supplier because you are paying for quality. I don't know about you as a consumer, I am willing to pay more money for higher quality than anything else. I prefer that. My my shoes, and my clothes, and my car, and my house, go down the list, I am prepared to pay that extra percentage for the quality. So we got to get a mindset that you have. Quality isn't necessarily always the function of the lowest price. They feel this whole thing is too complex. They don't know how it all fits together because they take individual courses and they're trying to figure out what is all this. And that's what we discovered this summer when we worked with these two smaller suppliers. In fact, I deliberately picked one of them, you can see an example, because she had completed the most of the consortium courses. And even if she had completed all these courses, when I talked to her, she couldn't put together a coherent statement as to why I should use her, and particularly why having quality training was important to her. They feel it's too difficult to learn, lack of follow-up and support. And they come into a class, or small suppliers, one person will go out, and no one calls them, or nothing happens. They feel that they're not interconnected to real-world business. By that, they're saying, if I do something, what's the cause and effect relationship here? They feel they lose time and money because these training activities seem to be disconnected. It is too trainer dependent. In other words, classroom instruction format, you come in, you do some interesting thing, but when you're done, as an individual supplier, you're prepared for what you're actually applying. It's not quickly available when they need it. You gotta remember, these are individuals out there or small groups, and they're rolling down a package trail here, and they're saying, man, I need this training, and they knock on the door in a local college or business, and they say, well, we got a package on the shelf, we'll take it out. Sorry, but we won't do this course until next December, but they need it now. So we're very sensitive to that. Too consultant dependent. I think large corporations even feel that this is a problem, so we need to wean ourselves, and therefore transfer training to suppliers that they can use anytime, any place. They feel there are too many awards and ceremonies, and that efforts is not really rewarded. And that means I need to see some money in my pocket. Other concerns is training for training's sake, information overload, too much time off of work. So they tell us what they want, and of course they get obnoxious sometimes, and they embarrass us by asking questions like, if total quality is so good for you, Mr. Customer, why doesn't everyone in your company do it by walking the talk? And I think as an organization, as a college, the more and more you walk down this path or continue this journey for quality, continuous improvement, or meeting your own vision, this is going to be the hardest issue to deal with. As you, as individuals, have to decide, make a deliberate decision, and you have to do this from an internal source of your value system to walk the talk. We have, unfortunately, in our company, managers who do not walk the talk. They're good at talking the talk. There's a lot of veneer, but it's quickly scratched, and we get into it very soon as to our inherent problems. Next year, in fact, starting October 1st here, I'm going to be responsible for the Vision Value Survey for Texaco. It's going to be 30-some thousand people we're going to survey on the vision and values that they have related to continuous improvement and quality enhancement. Very focused survey, and what we're trying to get at are we walking the talk. Now, up to now, we haven't beaten B4, but I can assure you that there have been certain corporations, Motorola and Xerox, where the CEO has given the corporation about 5 years. Allied Signal is another good example, and they have told managers it's time to walk. Allied Signal last year, this was after a 5-year quality initiative, the CEO announced and personally visited every major Allied Signal site and told the managers that it's now time to walk the talk. He targeted the lowest rated segment of Allied Signal that was rated by their own employees. Every manager and supervisor was fired and told to reapply for their jobs. They had 90 days. They set up councils and had representation from the workers, from management who didn't get fired, and their customers. And they literally went through a rehiring process. 24% of the managers and supervisors did not get rehired. They didn't lose their job. They got demoted, obviously. They didn't lose salary, but they were also told that they had 1 year to start looking around. As long as there was work and they had the skills to perform the work, they would be retained within the organization. That is the most extreme move I've heard, but it sure got a lot of focus among a lot of managers. What the positive part of it is they use quality criterion for selection, and there were people in lead positions who got promoted up to supervisory positions. And it was a true demonstration that they were walking the talk. So anyway, if you all go down this road, you're going to have to grapple with that. Of course, the other embarrassing question about the ball rate is, it's so good, why doesn't everybody do it? Well, the ball rate is just an assessment, and it doesn't make you a good company. And as Bogle once observed, we met the enemy, he was us. And so we really took it to heart that we had to do something. This wasn't an overnight decision. We've been talking about this for a year and a half during what we needed to do with extortion. So therefore we said it is time to switch our thinking. We decided we're going to look at the suppliers as our customers, and there's a term we use, listening to the voice of the customer. And that was the gain of better understanding of what they were trying to say. We restated the problem then, is that many suppliers are not getting the training because they believe they cannot afford the time and money, and they don't even believe that using these best practices will get them the business. So we decided to address the belief system. And we felt that, in summary, that there were requirements. We went back on the list, and we have a lot more than what I shared with you this morning. But basically what they were telling us is they wanted easy, affordable, and usable. Well, I've heard that before. Sure, you're right. And we had to listen to ourselves and say, yeah, we got to address that issue. So the question then raised very quickly is that we provide fast, affordable, and useful training as being framed for the suppliers. Will suppliers take and use the training? So if that doesn't happen, then we have problems again. We're in there to convince management that we need to do some change. So we decided, in good problem-solving method, to address the issues of attributes of where suppliers need to be, and they're saying we need to have easy, affordable, and useful training. And it has to meet their needs for quality, productivity, performance, and pricing by our needs as business. And we had to have something that aligns, that meets our needs, that uses learning from others, and uses best practices. So we went on with these solutions. We had very long discussions with ourselves, and one of the concerns we had is that we had to really meet people's needs. We had many decisions we had to make along the way, but one thing we definitely didn't want to do was get into a relationship with our suppliers and saying, hey, customer, pick too fast, cheap, and good. We felt we had to help them meet those needs, and we had to help them improve their training. Now, all this was pulled together through models, and what we attempted to do was really to focus on the supplier and our needs, and we felt really address the issue of something being fast, affordable, and easy to use. And we decided that since we had as our model dog food, that we got to think about, why don't dogs eat dog food? Why don't suppliers eat it? And we decided what we got to do is find ourselves some dogs that want to eat the dog food. And I mean, this is a free enterprise system. It is a competitive system. We don't have to necessarily use a supplier because they're nice and wonderful. We have to use them because they provide the products and services that we need. So we decided in our modeling to target suppliers that are capable of doing what needs to be done for us. And we came up with all sorts of models. One model, which I think you'll learn to love, I took it out of education, is the model of thinking, feeling, doing, or affective, psychomotor, cognitive, and using telling as a learning activity. Now this is, you say, pretty evident. Well, sometimes when you're dealing with 18 diverse cultures, that which is evident isn't very evident. And we had to reassert within ourselves that we believed in this type of learning model. We had to come to a conclusion, and one of the conclusions we came to is that we could do it easy. We could have an easy business improvement model, thinking, feeling, doing. And long story short on that one is we didn't come up with a model. It's actually based on Xerox model and Xerox learning. And that is, you need an environment, you need skills and innovation, teamwork, decision-making, communication skills. I would submit to you those are skills that your students need. This is reflected in the scans report. It is reflected in all sorts of documentation that's floating around, but those are the key skills. Your students should be able to innovate, be creative thinkers, etc. The model, again, was very important for us in developing. And when we finally came to conclusion on it, we were very pleased because we now were ready to define what we wanted to do. This defines a little bit barriers to the skill set. So if your students can creatively and critically think, they can build people-thing data relationships, they can sustain and improve work, and formally and informally communicate, you have a student that has saleable skills. They have what are called transferable skills. That will take them very far in the future in terms of where we're going. The state of Texas' education code is based on these skill sets. So when you're looking at your curriculum and you really want to try to interface with business industry, that is what we're looking for in your students. That is where we want to go. That is hopefully what the Internet project is all about. One of the things we quickly did is once we came to an agreement on what we wanted to do, we came up with a model which is called the Internet Improvement Model. It is based on meeting needs, the needs of customers and also the needs of the students. So the critical elements here is you go in, you make an improvement decision need. You need to decide as educators what that is in terms of translating to your individual curriculum. Now, this is how we're looking at it. There's a need. This is all major stuff and Bloom and all the taxonomy issues. I mean, this is just pure old education stuff, instructional design, development. We broke our project up, and when you go into the internet, in our home page, you will find that there's going to be directories. There's going to be a knowledge directory, a relationships directory, and a services directory. And in there, we have it broken down into catalogs of learning, practices, partnering, interconnections, facilitation, and profiles. What do you get? Well, when you go in there, you push a button, you go into learning. And this is what I want to end up in the discussion. This is what we're developing right now. Is we're developing a course on internet that will take the essentials, critical thinking, etc. We'll take an improvement system that we already have been using for many years at Texaco, and we will pull it together and make it available in modules. These modules will be 30 to 60 minutes in length or more. Every time a student completes a module, and one module that's near and dear to my heart is what is your vision? What vision have you set for yourself as a supplier? They will go through this exercise. It is what we're calling team directed. It's basically self-instructional. So they will page their way through. I left numerous copies here yesterday for the faculty to look at of the Texaco training. So what we're going to do on the first pass, just to get this started, our target is by January 1 to have all these modules up and running, is we're going to take the Texaco materials, simply transfer them over into the internet format. You'll see, when you look at it, that it is self-instructional, that there's outcomes for each module. As a supplier goes through the learning modules, what they are doing is creating what we're calling a profile. Now, a profile is a way that we're going to communicate the learnings that are reflected in the course. In other words, we who are doing this in business industry from the perspective that we believe in continuous improvement, we believe that a good company, a good supplier has a vision, that they have goals, that they have values, that they have plans, that they know how to solve problems, that there's a whole array of information that they have. And the way it's going to be demonstrated, we're talking level 1, 2, and 3 is going to be built into it, is that they're going to be transferring their knowledge as they complete each module over into a profile. And that this profile will describe who they are in terms of products and services, but it will also describe what their vision goals. That is what's so unique about this project, is this will be the first time that these corporations have attempted to profile their suppliers from not just perspective of pricing, not just from the perspective of the usual products and service listings, but who they are as corporations, who they are as individuals. We even will ask them to profile their value systems. And then we will tie that to references. You know, you tell us you have a value system, who should we call? We do check pricing references and certainly quality references. We're now asking for a different level of referencing. We're also asking in these profiles that, that they demonstrate in written form their commitments or understanding about quality. These profiles are about 9 pages long, we came up with. Now you say, God, who would ever read 9 pages? Well, the way that it's structured, it starts from the general and goes to the specific. And a specific item is, if you as a supplier want to do business with Motorola, we're going to have a small module on Six Sigma, which is their quality approach to products and service control in terms of how things go through, how they measure them. And you will have an option as a supplier then to go get additional training. And here's where we see the partnership really working. We see colleges like yours throughout the United States having these courses available. So that the supplier can go through this essentials course, a module, get the information very quickly, get an understanding. The course is put together as a system. They can go through each module. It's already organized for them. And then they can almost self-assess themselves. And they can then say, man, I need additional training. Why would a supplier want to do that? Because it's a way of meeting needs. And as educators, you've got to help your students understand this concept of meeting needs and how it translates into the area of continuous learning. If you look at the new workplace, some of the attributes of the new workplace is that of continuous ongoing learning. Things are changing too rapidly that you can be quickly left behind in terms of your skill base. I had the opportunity to lose my job 3 times during the oil bust from the same company. I got laid off, got hired back, got laid off, got hired back. And one of the skills I had acquired there was the skill of career assessment and development. I went out and started my own little business, sole proprietorship, and was very fortunate to get a contract with the Job Training Partnership Act program. And every morning, there would be 20 to 40 unhappy people sitting in a room because they had lost their job. And they were there to assess where they were going. I did the front-end assessment part of what their skills, attitudes, abilities were. A learning I got from that, and it was a very depressing activity, week after week after week, was the fact that the majority of the people who came through there did not have the transferable skills that they needed. They did not have the skills that are listed and are part of this internet. They had to learn this. This is what's built into this internet project, or this internet course. Is we have built in there a system, an interconnected system, a system that we think works for us, and we're transferring it to the community of suppliers. What we're looking at, very simply, folks, is an opportunity, a potential. We have a vision. We're not really sure it will work. I have spent a lot of time giving you the background thinking, because I think it's very important that you understand where we're coming from and what we're trying to do. I think the technology is almost secondary. It is there, it meets our needs, and it gives a future. What I would like to conclude on is that this is an exciting opportunity. We have this vision, we're going for it, we're opening the doors as wide as we can, we're knocking on colleges and universities' doors and saying, here it is, join with us. For you as educators, I think this is probably one of the more exciting times. Like I said, I started many years ago in this area, but I think the technology is there. The other thing I think we have that I didn't have is the sense or understanding about interconnections. That if you grow these interconnections, like the consortium has grown interconnections, now we're opening the door to grow interconnections with education. I think that is one of the most exciting opportunities that educational businesses have. And it will serve everybody's needs and make everybody winners. So I want to thank you for the opportunity. Let me encourage you after, let's say, November 15th, to surf the net to that location. You will have all the details. If you ever want to know about this project, you will have the exact layouts, where we're going, and all that good stuff. But the fundamental message is it's there, it's exciting, it is an opportunity, and I really like to welcome you to the ride. Thank you very much.
We're going to go ahead and move to another facility. Those of you that work here on campus might help us with the people that are not as familiar with the campus to move over to the Noble Center. I stepped outside and checked the weather, and I think we're actually going to be able to make it over there with no rain. Whether or not we make it back for lunch to this facility at noon, that's another question. Let me handle some housekeeping things real quickly. We've got about 15 minutes before the next session starts. In your packet, you should have enough evaluation forms for each session. So the moderators of the sessions will be collecting the evaluations at the end of each session. What I would ask you to do is use one of those forms to evaluate this session right now. So while I'm going through some of these items, you can go ahead and be filling that out quickly. Rosina is standing at the back of the room in the pink dress, and she will collect those as you leave. There's also a form that is for an overall conference evaluation. We know that not everyone is staying for the full 2 days, so if you're leaving at the end of the day, the last session you attend, if you would leave that overall conference evaluation form with the moderator of that session, that would be helpful to us to continue to improve the programs. Also in your packet, there's a map of the campus. There's also a map of the Noble Building. I will tell you that the Noble Building has been under recent construction, and I think we're just about complete, but there may be still a few things that may hinder us here and there. There should be signs on every door. The conference is going to be on the first floor and the second floor, and those maps are marked in the packets. They're in, if you're confused about anything through this process, if you look for someone that has a black ribbon on their name tag, we can kind of help you to direct you to rooms or whatever assistance you might need. In the Noble Center, we do have some strict guidelines on food and drink. There will be refreshments in the inner lobby, which is on the first floor in the very center of the building. And that's also where the interactive reception is this evening at 4 o'clock. We will have refreshments in there. We will have several demonstrations of software and different products and services in that area, so we would encourage you to stay and mingle and visit with some of the presenters and those you come into contact today with. Okay, I think that's about it. We'll go ahead and move across campus. We're going to go straight this direction down the sidewalk. If anyone has any questions, feel free to catch one of us as we're leaving.